creation, and destruction. The two seemingly opposite poles of existence, which at the same time cannot exist apart from each other. And of the most magnificent sights in this loop, the manifestation of destruction itself has to be one of the greatest. I am talking about the explosion. So deadly, so destructive, and yet so very beautiful. So, what am I trying to sell here? Explosions, when they aren't used to hurt somebody in real life, are cool. Period. That's exactly the reason why I just have to add them into my game. But first, I need to figure out how to do that properly. If you don't know yet, my name is Zakar, K for short, and I'm making an open-world machine hunting game called Zares. Somewhat soon, I am going to make a video recapping my whole development journey so far, where I will finally share my somewhat complete vision of the game. So subscribe not to miss that. Right now, however, let's get to explosions. So, to understand how to make something, one has to observe and analyze it first. Of course, I'm not going to explode something in real life. That would be very dangerous. So, let's just go to YouTube and search for explosions. Oh, what's this? This does seem cool, but it's a bit too realistic. Zares is more of an anime-style game, so maybe let's suggest a request? Wait! Oh yes! This is it! The very explosion from the prophecy! Which I totally didn't make up like a minute ago. Alright, time to analyze. Skipping the adorable casting part, we can see that the explosion starts as a very yellowish stain with a red halo. Then distortions turn the stain into a more familiar explosion body. Looking from afar, we can tell that it consists of a bunch of red-hot smoke clouds rising up into the air and slowly getting darker as they cool down. We can also see bright lights illuminating the ground and some debris coming down with smoke. And then it happens. We get hit by the shockwave. In fact, this is the moment when we hear the distant boom from the explosion. Not gonna lie, I think that the shockwave is one of the best parts here. If you remember, the Tsar Bomb's explosion also had this cool shockwave. And look at how cool the camera shakes when it's hit by the wave. In addition to that, both videos have these secondary high-pressure rings. But they do seem to be exclusive to the more powerful explosions. And I am not sure that blowing up a nuke would be a really good idea in my game. So, I guess we will just skip that part. Maybe. Okie dokie. Here is what we have learned. To make a cool explosion, you need to start with a bright glowing stain, turn it into a bunch of red-hot smoke clouds, animate those clouds to rise up and cool down, and a cool shockwave with camera shake. Top it off with flying debris, lights, and maybe some smoke rings. And there is also the sound design part, but I hope we'll be able to yank it from the internet somehow. Hopefully for free? Right? Cool! Now we need to actually do all of that in a game engine. Unreal Engine 4 in my case. First things first, we obviously need a material. After doing some research, I figured that something like this is a very solid base for an explosion, and it also works surprisingly well as a smoke particle. This is my material setup for it. You can copy it if you want. The general idea here is to use a moving Voronoi texture as a mask, so when you tweak the opacity of a particle, it disappears in this nice and stylized way. It's also very useful to have control over the color and the glow of the material directly from your particle system, and that's what these two nodes are here for. Now let's move to the particle system itself and use all of the knowledge we've got from analyzing our references. For the bright initial stain, we can use a single large sphere with a short lifespan. I also like when it spawns very small and then rapidly grows into its final size. I think this really sells that feeling of the impact. For the red hot smoke clouds, we can use pretty much the exact same sphere, just this time we're going to need a bunch of them. To give the explosion body an actual cloud shape, we can make the spheres smaller and launch them in different directions. Though you should make sure they don't fly too far away from each other, so I recommend playing around with somewhat high drag values in this case. Also, don't forget to make them cool down into complete black at the end of their life, otherwise it's all gonna lose its meaning. Next is the shockwave. From my understanding, shockwave is a wave of highly compressed air that travels at the speed of sound. We can represent it, again, you might have already guessed it, with a rapidly growing sphere. Though it's the material that is going to sell the effect. The main idea is for it to be completely invisible everywhere apart from the surfaces. In Unreal you can use this depth fade node to achieve such result. Okay, this was already looking kinda cool, but let's bring it to a completely another level by introducing light refraction. You see, transparent objects don't just pass the light through, they also alter its trajectory. You have probably noticed that when looking at water, or maybe even glass. And you know what? Air is also a transparent thing. Normally, air has a very low refraction index, so the change to the light's trajectory is negligible. But when the air is compressed into a shockwave, its refraction index is significantly increased. By giving our material a bit of refraction, we can mimic this physical effect in a game engine, which is really cool. Alright, now to top everything off with some details. First, let's try adding the smoke ring. Here, it's using a somewhat tweaked version of the explosion material, and it looks really cool when paired with the shockwave. We can also add some simple debris flying in different directions, and give them some trailing smoke. This is a very simple effect that, for some reason, I didn't know how to use. Though it turned out to be just one simple module in Niagara, so there is absolutely no reason to avoid it. And this way we got here. It's a pretty cool looking visual effect that does have a feeling of power and impact. The only problem is that it doesn't interact with the world. At all. To fix this, let's give some actual physical force to the shockwave. In order to do that, I replicated the shockwave in a blueprint. This means that now we can actually detect when the shockwave collides with objects, and thus apply various effects like camera shake or physical impulse to them. This is also the time when the player should hear the sound of the explosion. Oh, the sound. I completely forgot about that! Quick, maybe we'll find a good sound online. Nah. What if we do it ourselves? Wait, what? Don't you worry, I'm fine. I just forgot to tell you about my live streams. There we play Elden Ring and just have a fun time. So yeah, subscribe and follow me on Twitch. Bye bye.